There's an episode, I think it's in season 5, where Dwight Schrute decides that he needs to make sure that everybody is prepared for any sort of emergency, and he basically starts a fire in the office. And Michael Scott comes running out of his office, and he screams, "Oh my God, okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm." And I feel like that is exactly where we are when it comes to college football season. We got that little bit of smoke, that little bit of a taste in week 0, where the full-on onslaught and the blaze and the flames and everything is coming this week with week 1. I'm Dan Watkins. John McKechnie is here as well. It's college football tailgate. John, we are so close. It is almost here in all of its glory.
Yes, and I'm wearing the CPR dummies mask right now.
Very nice. Yes, the precious heart. as they train for what is safety preparedness or stress relief, whatever that episode was called, but a fantastic one. Highly recommend. I think that's probably my favorite episode of The Office all time. But we're not here to talk about The Office. We're here to talk about college football. We're going to tie a nice bow on all of our preview shows today. If you missed any of those, go back through our channel. We got them all up for each of the Power 4 conferences. We're going to talk about Notre Dame today. We're going to talk about the G5. We're going to give our playoff predictions, our national championship picks, maybe even some Heisman picks too. And we will also talk a little bit about Thursday night, August 28th, I believe it is, where we get a nice 5-6 game slate there. And we'll have some best bets for you guys towards the end here, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, I do want to start off things tonight or today, whenever you're listening, this show, with just a little bit of a lingering thoughts from week 0. John, great job last week. I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but I feel like we read that Iowa State-Kansas State game right. And Iowa State just seemed much more ready to go. Kansas State couldn't quite get the job done there. In Ireland, we had some concerns about the offensive line. We had some concerns about their quarterback. But it also turns out that maybe we should have had some concerns about their quarterback's family. As if you haven't seen this yet out there, go look up Avery Johnson Dad on Twitter. Avery Johnson is the Kansas State quarterback. His dad and his brother got in a full-on brawl outside the stadium after the game. Just absurd. And I mean, they had to pull them off of each other. They issued an apology. But, John, things not looking good right now for Kansas State and their quarterback.
Yeah, vibes not great coming out of week 0, and definitely not how they wanted to start the season. Dan, you and I are a couple of Irish guys. I mean, you yourself root for the Fighting Irish. I mean, are you surprised that, we got a little bit of a tussle going on after a game like that?
No, not at all. If there's any place for a family brawl, I think it is Ireland. That is 100% the case there. But, yeah, Kansas State seems like they might be down bad at this moment.
Yes, yeah, I'm concerned for them, but also we're flying high on the Cyclones. How about them? I think we definitely liked them. Plus, I wish I had the onions to officially give out the Iowa State money line. I was hunting for the most points I could get on them at a plus 3.5. But hey, man, all's well that ends well there.
So yeah, that was a great way to kick off week 0 with that clash in the Big 12 there. A couple other lingering thoughts. The Dan Mullen experience, I don't want to say it's not off to a bad start, but I don't want to say it's off to a good start either at UNLV. They really struggled throughout that game there. They did ultimately pull away and get the win. Jalen Daniels looks awesome at Kansas. And then my big takeaway from Saturday is just, John, what has happened to Stanford football? It is sad.
I think I have a theory on this. I think that them and Cal both are just kind of these programs that are the least equipped to do well in this particular era of college football. Like transfer portal, they're not really going to bend their rules as far as admissions are concerned. So they're not going to be super active in bringing in new classes of established players who are going to be looking to. Stanford's is not really that destination in the portal anymore, and they probably just NIL wise they're probably more concerned with, the academic stuff at Stanford and Cal as well. So I think that just those two factors combined, especially, given what we see at other programs where they are able to do extremely well in the portal and with their NIL collectives, they've completely changed the fortunes of their programs. I think Ole Miss is the poster boy of that. And I think on the other end, a program like Stanford is just going to kind of suffer that way. And I don't really know how exactly Andrew Luck is going to get this thing turned around. He's a brilliant guy. He's going to have to get really creative to really get things back on the rails as far as the Stanford football program is concerned. And I think long term, maybe he'll come up with something. But in the short term, in the interim, with Frank Reich as kind of like this mercenary one and done head coach, operation that they've got going on right now, I think we're in for a long year on the farm there.
Yeah, Andrew Luck. How do you feel about him being in the booth with the play callers? That feels to me like a little too much. I mean, the cameras were loving. They probably showed him 15 times Saturday night in that game. Him sitting next to the offensive play caller there for Stanford. But yeah, like you said, a lot of work cut out for Andrew Luck to really get this thing going in the right direction.
Yeah, so I wonder if he'll, take a little bit of self-reflection off of that and see how that was received by everyone and be like, oh, maybe that does come off as extremely overbearing. Maybe I'll stop doing that.
Just a tad. But, you mentioned, and we think of Stanford as this great academic institution. They absolutely played a gigantic part in their own demise Saturday night. Between the defensive player doing the TikTok dance after the sack there that cost him 15 yards and ultimately led to a Hawaii score. You got the quarterback there throwing one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen when he rolls out and he's got a breaking free defender coming right at him and just puts it right in his chest. And then Frank Reich, if he didn't already have the interim tag on him, I would say maybe they should put that on him because that was just some horrible clock management to end that game as they basically let Hawaii, they let them run the clock out and kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, just brutal stuff. And, I know that Frank Reich, maybe not the best coach ever at the NFL level or whatever, but you'd think he'd have at least that part of the equation nailed down. But nope, little rust on the guy.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the guy was wearing long sleeves in Hawaii, so, I don't know what you want to expect there either. And that didn't look like a sun shirt either for all my fellow pale-skinned and freckly friends out there. But anyways, my Twitter feed was filled with Indianapolis Colts fans Saturday night, just basically like taking victory laps for getting rid of Frank Reich in Indianapolis there. But speaking of Indianapolis and the great state of Indiana, let's get right back into our previews here. Let's talk about Notre Dame. The Irish, John, coming off that appearance in the national championship game, the Marcus Freeman era enters year number 4 in South Bend. Win total, one of the highest in the country at 10.5. It's plus 130 to the over on FanDuel. You can find this at under 10.5 at minus 135 at DK for your best prices. The Irish are probably going to be favored in every single game this season. Marcus Freeman has gotten better each year record-wise from 9-4 to 10-3 to 14-2 a year ago. This team, it looks like they're going to have strengths all over the field between their offensive line, their running back room, the defense. This might be the best group of pass catchers that Marcus Freeman has had since he took over as the head coach in South Bend. Yet, John, as a fan, and I might just be paranoid here, I can't fully buy in because I have concerns about the quarterback. And I feel like that is going to make or break this season with C.J. Carr or Kenny Minchey, whoever's under center.
Sure. So, you're sounding a lot like me right now, where and our fans on TikTok let me know that I don't know ball for being a little bit concerned about a guy who's made, played like 6 quarters of college football and hasn't looked particularly great across that sample. So definitely understand where you're coming from there. But I'm pretty bullish on the Irish this year. I feel like this sets up really well. They're going to have those marquee games to really kind of make statements out there, both against Miami and A&M. Notre Dame always plays a tough schedule. So I feel like that sets up well for them. It will be interesting to see how they handle the quarterback balance, because it does feel like with how close that competition was and how long that lasted into the summer, it feels like Minchey is definitely going to have some sort of role, maybe some package of plays one way or the other. But you can always feel like pretty confident in this Notre Dame offensive line, being able to move people around, and you got to love that backfield. I think I wouldn't blame anyone for saying that it's the best and take that over the Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Jadarian Price and Love are just, that's that's tough to stop over the course of 60 minutes. So I really like this Notre Dame team. Obviously, 10.5 is I usually don't dip into those waters where your margin for error is so thin. You two losses and your ticket is up in smoke. So that's a little bit tricky for me to get behind. But all told, I think that this is we're looking at another playoff team here.
Yeah, so I mentioned my concerns there. CJ Carr named the starter for week 1. I do think we'll see Kenny Minchey Sunday night against Miami in some sort of a package or whatnot. But what I keep coming back to, and I guess what I keep telling myself to feel more comfortable with this, is that there's a reason Marcus Freeman, for the first time in 3 years, did not go into the transfer portal at quarterback, where we saw him bring in Sam Hartman 2 years ago. We saw him bring in Riley Leonard a year ago. These are two kids that he recruited that were high-level recruits to come in here and take control of this offense. And yeah, when you get to lean on Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Williams out of the backfield there, it should be a strength. The thing with this schedule, though, it sets up, and this offensive line is going to be tested right away. These are two of the best, probably the two best defensive fronts that they're going to see all season are in their first 2 games, with Miami and Reuben Bain there down in South Florida, and then when Texas A&M comes up to South Bend in week 3.
Right, so those are baptism by fire types of setups, but I feel like Miami oftentimes like they'll have like the star power up front, but like they sort of seem to lack the depth
right.
where they're not just kind of like doing full wholesale line changes and just everyone coming off the bench is still like a monster at the same level as the starters like we see with some other programs. So I do. I don't want to gas you up or jinx you too much, but I do feel good about Notre Dame's chances here Sunday night to get things started.
Yeah, I do ultimately as well, because Marcus Freeman, I think he always has his team ready to go for these marquee games and these big spotlight moments. They're always ready to go when it comes to these national TV primetime games. It's the week after that always gives me concern, and we've seen that with Northern Illinois or Marshall a couple of years ago, where they do have a bit of a letdown spot, and that's what holds me back when I look at Marcus Freeman right now. Still, I think Marcus Freeman is an exceptional coach. I think he's the right guy, obviously, to lead this program, but I still have him as like a tier 2 coach in college football right now, where I don't put him on the same level as the Kirby Smarts, the Dabos, Ryan Day, and so on. I view Marcus Freeman right in that solid B+ tier right now, and I'm curious how you feel about him from a neutral observer perspective.
I'm with you there, where whereas in the Brian Kelly era, you always felt like they were going to come up short in the marquee games. It does feel like the shoe's totally on the other foot, where you
right.
can always trust a Marcus Freeman team to be ready to go for these big games. But Brian Kelly never slipped up against these kind of like bye week type of opponents the way that Freeman has. So it's an odd little thing that he's got going on that needs to get cleaned up. But I still think ultimately, like, if you had to choose between a guy that can win the big game or just not screw up in the little games, I prefer the guy that can go big game hunting and feel good about that.
So when it comes to the Irish, when it comes to like national title and national championship and getting to the playoff and all that kind of stuff, I do think they'll be right there to get to the playoff. I'm a little hesitant though to think that they're going to be able to get all the way back to the title game. I think that path just broke really nicely for them a year ago. And I look at this roster, and I think this team is built more for 2026 when it comes to fully going, going all the way. This is a heavy junior-laden team. You got a brand new quarterback coming in there. I can't just fully go full homer here and buy in on the Irish and take a ticket for them to win the Natty.
Yeah, I think it's just really hard to get back, and I think when you look at the top of the cream of the crop as far as the rest of the other teams, because I think Notre Dame has a very good chance of like getting the 5 seed again. But when you're talking about a path where maybe you win that first game on campus, but then having to get through, any of Penn State, Texas, Clemson, Ohio State, Bama, like any of those, I do think that those teams are just a notch or two ahead of this particular Notre Dame team. Obviously, we could be singing a different tune depending on how things go with Carr. He's a big-time recruit. So we'll see how that works out. But I'm with you where I stopped short of this team making it back to the Natty itself.
So let's see if our screen share capability is working this week. I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
John, can you see? All right, look at that. Let's pull up the Irish's schedule here. 10.5, as we mentioned, is the win total. Right out of the gate there, Miami, on the road, Sunday night, standalone, island game. That's going to be a tough one. The Irish, I think, are favored by 2.5 right now. I'm starting to see a little bit of steam going towards the Hurricane side there. But then the Irish have a bye week to get Texas A&M. They have to go to Arkansas later on in September. Boise State comes in to South Bend this season. NC State always plays them tough. USC, we're not sure what they'll be at this point. And then really, if they can get through here, and if they're unscathed going into that USC game, I mean, the Irish do have a really good shot of running the table here this season. But the first 2 games are the big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if I'm really taking the microscope to it, you can't, take Navy lightly, especially with the team that they're bringing back out this year, and then getting Pitt like the next week. I think if their offense is at full steam ahead with Holstein, with Desmond Reed and company, they're just a team that's very different, obviously, than Navy, but, kind of having that slingshot, that whiplash with those two back to back, you got to make sure that you come correct for those 2 games. But then I feel like once you're getting to Syracuse and at home particularly, and then you get Stanford with what we've kind of established about them and what they established for themselves, you're feeling really nice about where you're going to be slotted in as far as your playoff seed is concerned.
Yeah, what's that Stanford team going to look like at the end of November? That will be something to see, I feel like. Or maybe not. That might just be you can watch the first quarter and then okay, I think we're good here. We'll move on to something else. All right, so that will do it for our Notre Dame preview. If you guys are enjoying these videos, enjoying our shows, if you could do us a favor and hit that like button on the video, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, and hit that subscribe button most importantly. It helps us out big time as we're trying to grow this thing. So if you could do us a favor and tell a friend as well if you're looking for more college football content as we head into the 2025 season. All right, so when it comes to the college football playoff, John, we do know that one G5 team is going to make it. They have to. It's in the bylaws. A group of 5 team gets an automatic bid to the college football playoff. Last year it was Boise State, and it just so happens, even without Ashton Genty, the Broncos are the favorite to come out of the G5 this season. We can talk. I do want to touch on Boise State a little bit here. 9.5 is their win total. Another one of these absurdly juiced ones, like we were talking about, I think, with Oklahoma in the SEC preview, where it's minus 200 to the over, and then the under is at plus 165. You look at Boise State's schedule, outside of that game at Notre Dame, they really should blow through this thing and be 11-1 and sitting there in a prime spot to get back to the playoff.
Well, those odds make me feel a little bit worse about this take, but I do feel like everyone's just kind of rubber stamping Boise State to make it right back. And you're talking about losing the most important player in program history, or at least of the last decade or so. Maybe you'd have to go back to your Jared Zabranskis or Kellen Moores of the world. But I mean, Genty was everything to this team and into this offense in particular last year. I'm not sure that Madsen is really a quarterback that you trust to kind of put the team on his shoulders and get it done. So I think the run game takes a decent step back. I know that the Mountain West is not a gauntlet by any means, and this Boise State team should be set up, but boy, I mean, you're talking about a pretty thin margin for error there to hit their win total over. And I'm going to stop a little bit short. I think that, oftentimes the chalk with this type of stuff, a group of 5 type of team, I think that we might see a little bit more chaos, or at least I tend to root for more chaos in particular. So I have my ideas set somewhere else as far as who's going to be representing the G5 in the college football playoff.
So the loss of Genty is huge, absolutely. You're replacing a guy who had 400 touches a year ago. I think 399 is the exact number. I think 374 and 25 catches or something like that. Just absurd. It sounds like they're big on this Sear Gaines. I think is it Sire or Sear? They're running back this season. He's a redshirt freshman, but it sounds like Danielson's pretty high on him.
Right. So, I mean, Boise State is a running back factory for all intents and purposes. They've always been able to kind of send their top running back off to the NFL. It's not just Genty. We've seen that. Jay Ajayi. I mean, you got Doug Martin, the old muscle hamster. Yep. I mean, they've had plenty of guys, make it to Sundays and everything like that. And Gaines, I think, is really promising, and it's an offense that I think is really, really, kind of built around the run game, and everything flows from that. But it's hard to expect him to do a good impression of Genty, especially like right away in his first like real shot of taking over as the lead guy there. So if that takes a little bit of time to get itself on track, I end up getting a little bit worried, and I just don't think that Boise State is quite as bulletproof as those odds say that they are.
Yeah, so the Broncos bring back 14 starters from a year ago, including their quarterback, Maddox Madsen. They bring back their top receiver as well. Plus 180 to make the playoff. 9.5 is the win total. They are the odds-on favorite to win the Mountain West again, if you do want to place a wager on the Broncos. So, John, bouncing around the rest of the top five, I think, or the G5, excuse me, when it comes to the odds board, we got teams like Memphis and Tulane are up there. I think Navy's up there as well, which I've kind of started to talk myself into. We can get hit on that in a moment. But who do you want to talk about when it comes to the G5? Because there's just so many options.
Well, I do like Tulane. I think it was a huge pickup for them to get Retzlaff. I think he's a talented guy. Obviously, weird situation with him having to leave BYU. But, this was a Tulane team that I was worried about coming into the summer, because I thought that Darian Mensah was, one of the more impressive young quarterbacks in college football last year. So losing him to Duke, is like, all right, what exactly are they going to be able to do at quarterback? But Retzlaff kind of falls into their lap, and all of a sudden I feel like we can stay afloat as far as the wave is concerned. But I think my pick for the G5 representative in the college football is the JMU Dukes.
Okay.
They bring back a decent amount on both sides, and I know that we're a year further removed from Cignetti being there, but I feel like that they were able to largely stay on track a good bit last year. I think that the Sun Belt is winnable. I think they're going to be able to stack some wins. They are the odds-on favorite, not quite to the same extent that Boise is, where they're minus 165. JMU is about plus 260 to win the Sun Belt, but I like them to do that. I think that they're just going to kind of mop up in conference play. And ultimately, I think we're going to see some kind of crazy point differentials. I think they're really going to kind of run through that. And at that point, I think that they will be the highest ranked G5 team come December, and therefore they will make it to the college football playoff. So call me bullish on the Dukes this year.
All right, I like that. I like that a lot. Just going back to Tulane quickly, that Retzlaff pickup is big for them, because I think they were about to go into the season before they got him with the kid that was the Iowa quarterback a year ago. Sullivan, I think, was their pickup in the portal, which is always a tough thing to do, and bringing in an Iowa quarterback. But anyways, I do love John Summerall. I think he is like the next big name to elevate into like a Power 4 job at some point here. But man, he's got his work cut out for him. And same thing going on in Memphis. Like these G5 schools and these programs, it's going to be really tough. And I highly doubt we're going to see a lot of continuity from year to year when it comes to like consistent contenders into the playoff and stuff like that, just because these rosters, specifically Memphis and Tulane, are going to get gutted by the Power 4 and the big boys every single offseason. And they're basically going to have to start from scratch. So that's why I'm staying away from both Memphis and Tulane. I got to talk about Navy for a minute. I'm intrigued. I can't help myself. When it comes to the midshipmen, they returned the majority of that offense from a year ago, including Blake Horvath at quarterback, who had 30 touchdowns and over 1,300 rushing yards. We saw Navy kind of air the ball out a little bit more last year. Now, they got absolutely splattered by Notre Dame, but that's going to happen when Navy goes up against any of like these big schools. But you look at their schedule again, John. It's right there for Navy to take it if they can get the ball moving like they were a year ago, and if they can play decent defense. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on Navy.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think that you kind of circle like the fact that a lot of these teams do lose a lot via the portal. Navy's kind of a little bit immune to that to a certain extent. So you bring a lot of what made them successful last year back into the fold, and yeah, I say why not? Especially at almost 4-1 to win the American. Like I could absolutely see the path for them, and I think you look at the teams behind them on the odds board. not as in on Memphis this year. I'm a little bit concerned about their quarterback situation. UTSA, same deal. And then, I mean, you're really having to squint if you're making a case for, your North Texases or your UABs or even your East Carolinas of the world. So I think Navy, among the top 4 teams in according to the odds here in the American, I like I like that call a lot. I of course still believe in Tulane, but Navy, if I'm pivoting off of that, would probably be my next up.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the schedule right now. I pulled that up for us if you're watching on YouTube. The midshipmen should be able to get rolling here and really they could be undefeated going into that Notre Dame game again this season, just like they were a year ago. That game is in South Bend this year compared to Giant Stadium or MetLife, whatever you want to call it now, there in East Rutherford. But yeah, I like that 8.5 a lot. I do think they can take down Memphis on the road. And we see teams that just struggle with these service academies because they just can't handle it for, just getting the ball rammed at them over and over and over again for 60 minutes here. I like that 8.5 a lot, and I don't hate dropping the little pizza money on that 10-1 to get to the playoff.
There we have it.
All right, very good. Okay, let's do some predictions. We've given out our predictions for the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC. We can quickly run through those if you want to again, John, but go back, check out our other videos. It's up on our social media channels. We gave out our predictions there. But I think it's time to actually give some playoff picks and have some conviction here. So when we look back on this in December, we can either say, I told you so, or, man, I was wrong on that one. All right, you want to take it away? Break it down for me. What do you got the playoff looking like this year?
All right, we're going to hit it. Let's go 12-1. Let's build some suspense here. So starting us off, I will say that James Madison University is going to be representing the group of 5 in the college football playoff. So, yes, go Dukes. I've been there. I know several of their alumni. Great spot. Very passionate about their college football. So I think that they are going to get it done, get themselves into the CFP. Next up, I got Texas A&M as the 11th seed. I think the more that we have kind of talked about the SEC and breaking everything down, I think that the path is there for this A&M team. It's obviously going to rely on Marcel Reed to kind of take another step forward. But I thought what he showed last year was impressive enough to where it's like I want to ride with him. I really like Mike Elko, of course, the head coach. I think that they're a really hard-nosed team. They're maybe not the most explosive team, but I like what A&M's got cooking there. So I think that they are going to make the CFP. Right or wrong, I think that this is definitely one of those ones that we're going to look back in December, and it could potentially go very sideways. But I am drinking the Kool-Aid on this Illinois team. I think that they just have so much coming back. I like Altmaier. I love Brett Bielema. I think the schedule sets up really nicely for them in conference, so I think Illinois gets themselves in. Next up, as much as I like to bag on Miami and say I'm a little bit worried about them, I think ultimately the ACC is going to get a couple teams in here beyond Clemson. So I think that Miami would be that next one up. I know it's a little bit chalky, but hey, I can't be full galaxy brain for each of these. Next up, as we are kind of in lockstep on, really like this Ole Miss team this year. Believer in Austin Simmons, believer in Lane Kiffin. I think that they've got a pretty loaded roster, particularly on offense. I think they're going to be able to score with anybody. The defense remaining consistent from last year to this year, I think, is going to be going to kind of tell the story of this Rebs season. Next up, I got Alabama making the college football playoff. They'll be back in. I'm choosing to believe in Kalen DeBoer. I think that this sets up really nicely with the offensive coordinator coming in, them relinking back up. I'm a believer in Ty Simpson, so Bama, not a big Bama guy, but I just got to objectively believe that they are
just
going
say
to...
it. Just say it. Just say Roll Tide. Just say it.
No, you can't make me say it. You can't do it. But they're going to get back in. They're going to get back in, as much as that pains me to say it. Give me Ohio State next up. I think that they, I think they slip up once or twice this season, but ultimately they are still one of the 12 best. But I think that where I have them seated might be a little bit of a spoiler as to where they might slip up this season. But Ohio State, I mean, you got Jeremiah Smith on your team. You have just a completely loaded roster on both sides of the ball. If they don't make the college football playoff, I would legitimately be stunned. Next up, I got your Irish, Notre Dame. as the top seeded non-conference champion. So they'll be the 5 seed. Utah is going to win the Big 12 this year, in my estimation, and they will be the 4th highest ranked conference champion from the Power 4. So I'm huge on Devin Dampier this year. I think Utah gets there. Give me Clemson next up as the 3 seed. I think that they're in for a big time year. Explained a lot of that on our ACC preview. Texas would be my 2 seed, and Penn State is going to be my college football playoff number 1 seed this year. So that's how I have it lined up. Again, I'll hit it quickly. JMU, Texas A&M, Illinois, Miami, Ole Miss, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Utah, Clemson, Texas, Penn State. That's my field. All
right, very nice. And who do you have winning it all?
Give me Penn State. I think that this is the year to do it. We talked about them, and James Franklin having a ton of pressure on him, but I think that this is the year that Penn State finally gets over the hump. I know other people have drawn this comparison before, but Clemson couldn't do it until they did it. Georgia couldn't do it until they did it. I think Penn State is kind of like next up among those programs that haven't won a national championship in a while that are built to do so. So I think this is the year that Penn State finally breaks through.
Ooh, all right, John, putting a lot of faith in James Franklin. Can he get it done finally? And that would be a 3rd straight title for the Big Ten as well, which would definitely be interesting as we get to the discourse of the offseason at some point in a few months from now. My playoff predictions, so I believe, John, this year they changed it. It is just the top 4 seeds are going to get the 4 byes or whatever. I don't think the conference champion plays into it as much as it did a year ago. So that's why my rankings are going to look a little different here, but I'll go 12-1 as well. My G5, I'm going to go Boise. I'm going to buy in. Good amount of returning production there. I think they'll be able to figure out and mitigate and navigate that loss of Genty. It sounds like they really like that freshman kid too. I expect them to pass the ball a little more this year with Madsen back and some receivers back as well. At number 11, not my Big 12 champion, but my second Big 12 team in the playoff. I'm going with Utah as the runner-up to the Big 12. Still going to get in here. Doubt Kyle Whittingham if you dare. I do think they'll have something to say this season, be much better than they were a year ago. Number 10, Ole Miss. I trust Lane Kiffin to figure it out. You've talked me into Austin Simmons being the next coming of a great SEC quarterback, so give me the Rebs at number 10. Number 9, I had to find a 3rd Big Ten team because there is no way on God's green earth that the Big Ten does not get at least 3 teams into this playoff this year. And I was going back and forth, and I landed on Oregon. I trust Dan Lanning much more than I trust Brett Bielema at Illinois to figure it out. So I think Oregon will figure something out and get into the playoff here. Probably get boat raced like they did a year ago when they get there. But I still think we'll see them in the playoff. Number 8, a team that I noticed you left out. I can't believe it, but your Georgia Bulldogs. I trust Kirby Smart to figure it out as well. I have them as the 8th seed. I think the Dogs get in to the playoff as well. Number 7, my Big 12 champion, Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, Kenny D, Sam Leavitt, run it back. Kind of a similar thing to Boise State where they're trying to just replace that running back, that huge household name in Scadaboo, but they got the talent to do so in Leavitt and Jordan Tyson on offense to make up for that. Number 6, I'm going to go with my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And then number 5, I'm going to go with Ohio State as well. Like you said, way too much talent there in Columbus for them to miss the playoff. If they do miss the playoff, either Julian Sayin is not who we thought he was going to be, or they just had some terrible luck this year and just dropped some games that they probably shouldn't have. Number 4, my SEC runner-up, I'm going Texas. Too much talent there. The Longhorns will be there at the end in the playoff. Number 3, my ACC champ, the Clemson Tigers. Number 2, give me Alabama, my SEC champion. Number 1, I think Penn State's going to have the top seed going into this thing. It all just sets up so nicely for them, where I do think they win the Big Ten. Here's my prediction. I think they lose at Columbus, but they play Ohio State again about a month later, and they beat them in Indianapolis to get the number 1 overall seed in the Big Ten. And then when it comes to my champion, we're going to have to listen to it. We're going to have to listen to it. He's going to be very preachy, and he's going to tell us, he's going to tisk and shame everybody. Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. I got winning it all in January. I love the returning talent. I love Cade Klubnik. I love the wide receiver room, as we've talked about. This team is built for 2025 and to win it all. I think they run the table, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Clemson undefeated, winning it all at the end of the year.
I like that call. I have tickets on both Penn State and Notre Dame and Clemson to win it this year. So I think if either of us are right, but I'm happy. So good with that. But no, I think that Clemson has a very legitimate case to get it done this year. There was a kind of weird time frame, from 21 to 23, where it's like what's going on at Clemson? Like, why are they kind of looking shaky all of a sudden? I guess part of that, of course, was having DJU be their quarterback, but Klubnik has really ultimately kind of lived up to the hype. With he was a big time recruit, and now he's so experienced that they've got the weaponry that had kind of been missing in recent years. That was a big part of the recipe for success there at Clemson. You got star power at all three levels. I like that Clemson call a lot.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely sounds like you do. And as you mentioned, you got a ticket on them as well. A couple other predictions here. Who's your Heisman? Who do you got winning the Heisman this season?
So took another gander at the board. Yeah, I feel like I've just been staring at it for weeks at this point, just trying to find my legit pick for the Heisman for this show, because my Galaxy Brain one is Devin Dampier at Utah. But
what are the odds on that? Do you know those offhand?
Well, it was 80-1. Now it's like 50-1.
So okay, so a lot of Galaxy
Brains in the right
out there.
direction. Yeah,
definitely.
So I still stand by that, but tread lightly there, everybody. But I think ultimately, this kind of marries up nicely with having them make the college football playoff again. I think Ty Simpson is my favorite bet, given like the probability. And the odds, you can get that at about 20-1. I stopped short on like Julian Sayin or Arch Manning really like putting up the gaudy level of production that is kind of necessary for a quarterback. I think again Alabama's going to be making the playoff, and I don't think they're going to be running the ball like all that well this year. I think that Simpson and Ryan Williams and company, Jeremy Bernard. They're just going to be, I think I hearken back to that Washington team with Michael Penix from a couple of years ago, where they're just throwing it all over the yard, and Simpson kind of ends up being the reason why Alabama makes it back to the college football playoff. That, to me, is a compelling enough case to back him as the Heisman this year.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting, because we talked about Alabama's got those injury concerns in the backfield as well, but that sets up nicely for Simpson to have to do a lot there for him, and he could put on an absolute show. Week 1 against Florida State, too, and get that ball rolling really nicely. My Heisman pick, it goes right hand in hand with my national championship pick. I think Cade Klubnik's going to have a monster season, and I think it sets up nicely for him to put on a show Saturday night against LSU in that secondary, where I think Cade's at like 8 or 9-1. He's like the third guy, I think, on the board right now when it comes to the Heisman odds. He could very well be the favorite after week 1 if he does what I think he's going to do to LSU on Saturday night. So give me Cade Klubnik to win the Heisman, which would be very interesting because we never saw Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson do that when they were winning national titles for Clemson. I just really like everything he's got going on, and I think it sets up beautifully for Cade Klubnik to have a monster year there in Clemson.
And I think, you can kind of draw a similar parallel to Ty Simpson in the sense that, if there's a question on this Clemson team, it is probably the backfield. So, Cade's going to kind of have to put on the cape there, and I think he's shown that he's more than capable of doing so. So therefore, if you are going with a little bit higher up the board, we could certainly see these odds almost in half or like down to like 6-1 by a week from now. So I'd say jump in on that now while you can still get it at 9-1. Absolutely.
Yeah, and also other thing, too, that I forgot to mention, third year with Garrett Riley as the offensive coordinator. That continuity there, that offense should be completely tailored for Cade Klubnik to take advantage every single week. So I like that a lot. All right, so we've done so many predictions, like my head's spinning. But just kind of looking back, is there anything you want to take back or walk back, or like have you cooled on anyone that you were previously really high on, or vice versa? Has someone like just stood out to you? They're like, maybe I was sleeping on them a little bit. It kind of sounds like you're doing that a little bit with Miami, having them make the playoff. But is there anybody that you want to like have like a retake on before we get to week 1?
Right. So I definitely, wanted to just admit that despite my concerns with Miami, I still think that it sets up so nicely for them to make it back to the college football playoff. I think at the outset of this show, I thought I would have had UGA and Oregon both in there, but I will just kind of reinforce that I'm very worried about both of them dropping 3 games this year and therefore not making the college football playoff. And I thought I would be giving SMU a little bit more of a chance to get back to the college football playoff, but I think ultimately I'm getting a little bit nervous about them. You lose some really important pieces from both sides of the ball there. We're not sure if RJ Maryland's going to be totally ready to go. I think losing Brashard Smith is a really big deal for them. He was kind of like that Swiss Army knife coming out of the backfield for them. So as much as I like Kevin Jennings and company and Lashley, I still think that this is a year where it's a little bit of a reset for SMU. I think that they finish up 8-4, maybe 9-3, something like that.
Yeah, I guess the one team that I might have sounded a little skeptical with in our previews was maybe Ohio State a little bit, yet I have them in the playoff. I do think this team is they're too talented. Everywhere else I have my questions about Sayin. I think he could be a big disappointment, but he could very well prove me wrong on Saturday afternoon against Texas and look like an absolute stud. Throwing to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and those guys. I think Ohio State's going to be probably right there at the end again and be in that Big Ten title game. I'd be pretty shocked if they weren't. If they miss the Big Ten title game again and they lose to Michigan again, that would really surprise me this season. So I guess I'm a little higher on Ohio State than I was going back into our Big Ten preview, but I still stand by a lot of the things we said during those previews, where I think Penn State has an incredible regular season. They win the conference, but then they're going to slip up in the playoff at some point. Still love Clemson. Love Arizona State still. Yeah, and maybe I'm a little higher on Oregon than I was in our preview, but for the most part, I feel pretty good about what we said in our preview shows.
Yeah. I wouldn't take too much back, but yes. And then, on the Ohio State front, like you're saying, the bar is really high for them,
yeah.
Right? It's not, are they going to
I never thought they were going to be 7-5. I never thought they were going to be 7-5 or 8-4. I think at worst I could see them 9-3. Maybe even 10-2 might be their floor at this point.
Yeah, honestly, that's about what it should be. So it all, kind of comes down to, is Sayin, their next kind of C.J. Stroud level guy, or is he more of a Kyle McCord Ohio State version, not the Syracuse version? That one was pretty good.
Yeah, I think Kyle McCord just got cut in the NFL this week too, so there's a timely reference for everybody. Anyways, that's going to do it for our previews. Before we go, we do want to talk a little bit about the Thursday night slate here. We got 12 to 15 games on Thursday. It's going to be great. We're not going to go game by game and really break these down like we will do more so once the season gets going, and we will do that on Thursday's show when we'll talk about Ohio State and Texas, LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, and so on. But, John, just any best bets looking at that board for Thursday night that you're jumping on here heading into the start of week 1?
All right, so we got to start hot here, folks. Week 1 is here. I can't wait for Thursday night slate. I'll throw out 3 that I'm looking at right now. I like Boise State, despite you kind of ragging on them during this show. Not against USF, though. I think they are going to roll USF, even though that one's on the road. It's going to be hot. I'm sure they're in Tampa, but Boise -6.5. Love that. Give me NC State -12 over East Carolina. I know East Carolina can bite back a little bit with their offense, but I'm very in on C.J. Bailey and company this year, and I think they're going to be able to override the Casey Concepcion loss. So I like NC State to cover the 12 there, and then little underdog, little taking of the points here. Minnesota doesn't blow anybody out, so give me Buffalo +18, baby.
Okay. All right. Now, disclaimer, we did mention that Minnesota's the team we have no idea about. So do have to throw that one out there, too.
Steering into the void.
But anyways, Boise State down to 5.5 on DraftKings right now, John. So you can actually find a better number at the moment than that 6.5, as it seems like a lot of people are moving on South Florida. That number opened at 9. It's down to 5.5 now. For me, there's a couple here. There are 4 games Thursday night that I am on. I'll start with Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy, his team, I got them at 17.5. I think it's up close to 19 now at this point. But one thing Mike Gundy does really well is just beat up on FCF schools. So I think they're going to do that this week. UCF, Scott Frost, another guy that needs to make a statement in week 1. I think UCF as a program is 9-0 all time against the CUSA, and they're like 8-1 against the spread or something like that. I like Central Florida to have a big showing on week 1 there. I'm going to go over 49 in Rutgers and Ohio. I like these two offenses a lot, where I don't so much like the defenses. I think we're going to get points here. I think we can get to 50 with Kalakamanis and all those guys on Rutgers there. Rutgers is probably going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, I think, in this game. And then one more. I'm going to go under 54.5 between Nebraska and Cincinnati on Thursday night. That game just feels like a gritty, grinded-out game to me. And I'm looking at Bill Connolly's, I'm looking at his computer and what he's got going on. Absolutely loves the under in that one as well. Says it should be closer to like 48.5 instead of 54. So give me the under between the Bearcats and the Huskers.
Kind of a sneaky, great game, and one that's going to be super important for both sides. I think if Nebraska is going to be the team that their optimists are claiming that they're going to be this year, you got to take care of business at Cincinnati. But Cincinnati, not an easy place to play. As Scott Van Pelt always used to say, like, nipper it at night, man, look out.
Yeah, and I think that's like a 9 o'clock East Coast kickoff too, so that's a late one. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us. Nice, tidy show this week. Kept the ball rolling. We'll be back on Thursday to preview Week 1 as the chaos and the madness that just gets here. I cannot wait. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend across the country, so it's going to be awesome. Dare I even say legendary. But that's going to do it for us here on College Football Tailgate. I'm Dan. He's John. Hit that subscribe button and tell a friend. We will talk to you guys